What's up everyone, JP here, and today we're talking about Far Cry 5. It is the newest addition to the Far Cry series, and unlike Far Cry Primal, this is a numbered entry, which means they're getting back to their roots of the Far Cry series. I personally wasn't a big fan of Far Cry Primal, and to be honest, I can't really pinpoint why, because when the game got announced, I was really into the whole prehistoric theme. I thought they'd do that well, and to their credit, they did do it great. There was just something about it for me. It sort of felt like a DLC to me. I think maybe because it got released so quickly in comparison to the one before it, Far Cry 4, which really doesn't make much sense now that I think about it, because it was its own standalone game. I mean, it had its own setting, it had new weapons, new animals, new game mechanics even. So I'm not really sure why I got that vibe from it. Maybe I was just Far Cry'd out because it came out so soon in comparison. But that's a game I was psyched to play, and I didn't really play it through. And I can't really say it was because it was a bad game. I just kind of lost interest in it. Now, if you were like me and you didn't really love Far Cry Primal, maybe some of you out there were a little bit worried about Far Cry 5 and where it would go, I would say to you, don't worry, my friends, because I can assure you that they've brought the series back to their roots with a few changes for the better, in my opinion. Now, one of the biggest changes they made is they've opted out of the more traditional settings you used to see in Far Cry games, the fictional countries and regions, for a more close-to-home feel in Montana, USA. Now, I know when they announced this was sort of a divisive decision throughout the community. The fans didn't really know how to react to it, but I, for one, after playing it for a few hours, feel like it brings a new, fresh take to the Far Cry series. I think it's really cool in that respect that they brought it to the US. To me, it's still Far Cry in its truest form. It just brings the setting back to a familiar place. You know, it's really cool to see American-made type vehicles, characters you can relate to in some way, animals that you'd really see in Montana. I think it gives the series a fresh new take on the old system, and I think people will really enjoy it because of that. The setting for Far Cry 5 is the fictional county of Hope, Montana. The map does look phenomenal, and the setting is perfect in my opinion, whether it be the dense forests or the overgrown paths in the woods, the run-down asphalt roads or the dirt roads. The world itself is really fleshed out, and it really makes the setting feel like a real old American town. Now, the map itself does seem similar in size to Far Cry 4. I noticed it feels a little bit smaller than it is. Once you put a waypoint down, you see how far away something that looks close on the map actually is. And the map is jam-packed with things. You really don't have to travel far before you see a bunch of points of interest pop up or a little side objective they'd like you to complete. So, although the map is large, don't worry. There is tons of stuff to do other than the main missions. There's tons of little side activities, very much like in old Far Cry's. It seems to me, at least from the first couple hours of me playing, that the map is more populated. It seems like there's a little bit more stuff to do than in previous entries, so that is great. I encourage you to explore the map, have fun with it. You know, you can find all sorts of fun little things, animals, etc. in the map, so definitely take time to go out and explore in between missions. Because as always in Far Cry, there is tons of things to do, and of course there's the funny activities you can do. Take your mind off the game. Have a little lighthearted fun in the meantime. So definitely get out there and explore this beautiful map for yourself. Keeping up with Far Cry fashion, the story looks like it's going to be awesome in this game. The introductory sequence was phenomenal. I sat there awestruck the whole time I was going through it. Also, keeping with the Far Cry trend, there's a main villain. He's got a couple underbosses, but it's a typical diabolical, crazy villain. In this case, he's got a cult, so that's his following. We'll get into that more in a little bit. There is a ton of named characters in the game. Also, really a lot of lesser important characters that give you little side activities and ask you to do them favors. And there's a ton of citizens in the county just roaming around that you can encounter. At the very least, they have a couple lines of dialogue. As I said before, when I was talking about the map, they really fleshed this world out with people as well. Even most people you come across or rescue, they'll at least talk to you at the very least, but most of them will fight for you. You can hire them. It doesn't necessarily apply to every single person, but most people I've come across, that is the case for them. Basically, every NPC you see in the game has some sort of purpose, whether it be giving you a big mission, side mission, a little prepper stash, whatever, or if it's just a couple lines of dialogue, which really proves they did everything they could to bring this world to life. Basically, every person I've encountered in the game has either wanted to thank me for saving them or wanted to ask me a favor. So I really appreciate that aspect of the game. It makes it feel that much more real. When every single person you encounter in a map feels like they have their own little story, I think that's really cool. And the attention to detail in this game is really phenomenal. Not just with the people like I mentioned, but with really everything else. A farm you come across, a little house, or whatever shop. They all have their own little story, whether it be, you know, listening to the people talk about it or actually seeing the scene. You know, everything tells its own little story. I thought that was awesome, and the world is very much alive. All the stuff that goes on in it, you'd be surprised at how often something exciting or surprising happens that wasn't scripted at all. It just happens when you're traveling through the world. It's like a movie scene just happening in front of you. But it's all by accident. It's because the world has immense attention to detail, which makes it all the more real. Crazy things happen in it. It's just a beautiful combination of things, and it all works well perfectly, in my opinion. Even the work that went into the sound and sound effects in this game is phenomenal. Whether it be the noises the car makes, how the engine sounds, somebody being attacked in the forest, the gun sounds. Everything sounds really awesome and like it should. Also, the ragdoll effect in this game is incredible. And when you put all these things together, when you pay this much attention to all these separate things and you put it all together, it makes the game just feel real. The game comes to life in ways that other games really can't or don't. So now I'm going to talk about the cult leader, Joseph Seed, and the cult itself. So the main antagonist's name is Joseph Seed, also known as the Father. He runs a religious cult. And I've heard some complaints in some early reviews about him being not as memorable as some of the old Far Cry villains, and, you know, some of his lines aren't as memorable. I don't know where they're getting all that from. I haven't played enough of it. I mean, maybe they beat the game, but so far he seems like a pretty interesting villain, and they brought the religious cult aspect into the whole thing. I mean, the history has shown some of these religious cults could be really crazy, so it's not too far off from reality what they show in this game, the power this guy has over his people. He seems like a pretty interesting character. The few interactions I've had with him, they were pretty interesting. A lot of it was cool. He's an interesting guy, definitely psycho, crazy. We need to rid him of the area, but I thought he was a pretty interesting character. You know, he seems like a real person, a real nut job, so I thought that was really cool. The cult is crazy. They go by the name of Project at Eden's Gate, also known as Peggy's to the locals. Now, they obviously follow Joseph Seed, the father. He's their leader. But they do have underbosses, two of which are his brothers, Jacob and John Seed, and there's a woman, Faith Seed. There's been a reference to her in the campaign where they say they don't know if she's related to them, so I don't know what that's about. But all these underbosses control their own territories. They all run a different aspect of the cult. I'm going to be making another video, sort of an in-depth look at all this stuff. The cult, the map, the weapons, the vehicles, everything there is to know about the game. So stay tuned for that. I just wanted this first video to be a sort of review in progress / first impressions video. So stay tuned for that in-depth look at all things Far Cry 5. Now, I did want to take a second to talk about multiplayer and co-op. I think new players to the series will be disappointed to find out that you cannot progress through the campaign with a partner in cooperative gameplay. Unlike other Ubisoft titles like Wildlands that just came out last year, where you could complete basically the entire game with a friend or a squad even. This is not the case in this Far Cry, which personally disappointed me as well, because they were going pretty heavy with the advertisement, you know, with the pre-game demos, all the YouTubers and the reviews out before the game came out were all talking about the co-op. It was pretty co-op heavy, so I thought they had made some adjustments, but this is how the old Far Cry's used to be. So if you're the host of the session, your friend comes to join you, all they can take out of the game is the loot items they picked up, you know, the money, the guns, the ammo. That's it. If you find a buddy, say, or you complete a main story mission with them, they don't get it. When they go back to their game, they have to do it all over again. It is disappointing to see. I wish they at least allowed you to maybe liberate some of the outposts with your partner. I'm torn with this decision because I understand why they're not going to give you story progression, because Far Cry has always been a single player game. You know, they want you to experience the story for yourself. They want you to be paying attention and really get the whole experience. So I get it to a point, but I don't understand why, like I said, why can't we liberate some outposts together? Why can't, when I find a buddy, he gets them too? I don't understand it. I understand not giving, they don't want people piggybacking on somebody else to beat the game. I get that. That's why I'm torn about this whole thing. But they could have improved it. They could have gave us more. I mean, to me, there's no reason to play co-op. The only way you can really get anything out of it is if you play a region, your buddy plays another region, and then you go back with each other and play the parts that you've already played, but with them. So they're seeing it for the first time, but you've already seen it. I mean, it could spice things up. You could get more out of the game that way, more play time, because you're replaying stuff, and it will have a different feel when you're playing with somebody. But still, I really wish they improved that in some way. I mean, I just stated a few ways how they could do it. That is disappointing to me, but they want the multiplayer in Far Cry to be more of just that, multiplayer, playing against other people in Far Cry Arcade, you know, the map editor online. They want you to be playing those games, the death matches and stuff. That's what the multiplayer in Far Cry has always been about. I just really wish they kind of pivoted in this one. You know, like I said, in future Far Cries, I hope there is an enhancement of this. I don't need, you know, somebody to help me progress through the story, but can we at least capture outposts together? Can we at least, you know, some of the stuff we find, can the other person at least get it, other than just loot? To me, that's a disappointment. I think they need to change that. It'd be awesome if they did change it right now. I don't see them doing that. But I just had to mention that. I had to let people know, if you haven't played yet, that's how it is. So don't get your hopes up to get them smashed like my friend did. Because, to be honest, I had forgotten a little bit that that's how it worked. I was kind of getting that vibe while we were playing because I was getting everything. You know, we found the dog, I got the dog, and then he started reading about it as we were playing, and that killed our whole... It killed all the momentum the game had for me up to that point. It was about an hour into the game. I was psyched about the game. I didn't have any bad impressions about it. Then, after about 20-25 minutes of playing with each other, we found out, and he decided to leave the session. I don't blame him at all. I understand. You know, I don't want to play a game, especially the beginning of the game, where I'm not going to be getting anything and I have to do it all over myself. So I absolutely understood that, and that was a huge disappointment for us. I hope they change that in the future. But there's a lot of cool stuff about Far Cry Arcade. I'll get into that in that other in-depth video I talked about. And this was just my first impression video. Again, I'm new to YouTube still. This is only my second video. Leave a like, comment if you liked it. Comment, let me know what I did good, what you want to see me do better, what you'd like to see me change, or what I didn't talk about. Give it to me in the comments. I'll respond. I'll be watching. And thanks for your support. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching it all the way through. Stay tuned for more videos, and have a good one, guys.